YouTube, what's up? Back again for another daily fishing video here on Andrew Upshaw Fishing. Guys, today we're going to talk about my last video that I posted. The forward-facing sonar band video is the one I'm referencing, and I just want to take one quick moment and say thank you to everybody that commented and shared on both Facebook and on YouTube. It really means a lot to me that y'all are so engaged on this particular video. And it's more so because I think it's a really important topic that we talk about right now. And obviously, a lot of you have a lot of opinions on this particular subject. So it's really important to break down a little bit more in depth my opinion on things, because I feel like there was a lot of things that were missed in my opinion. And some of y'all opened my eyes to a couple of others. So I think it's really important to explain my side of things just a little bit more and a little bit more in depth. And I got a lot of phone calls, a lot of text messages about this too, so thank you for that. You know, the one thing that I didn't like was I got some pretty rude comments. I'm good with negative comments, but be respectful, please, in your comments. I don't play the rude stuff. I never will either. But we're going to go through some comments. We're going to really try to break down my stance a little bit more. We're also going to break down what Bassmaster could do better to make their coverage better, and truly holding anglers accountable for a couple of their actions as well. So let's break it down. Here's a comment that I really want to address. Nothing beats the old Bassmaster tourneys. When you had to find your spots and your fish instinct, these dudes are nothing without forward-facing sonar. Totally disagree. Sorry if I am disagreeing with you, but I completely disagree. The young dudes are nothing without forward-facing sonar. There might be a handful, and I'm saying a very small handful, that cannot catch them without forward-facing sonar. With that said, a lot of these guys are still really good fishermen. They understand how fish move. They've just adapted their games over the last couple of years because of forward-facing sonar, and they got so good at it. They were able to use it every single day. They practiced with it. They spent a lot of time. And I just want to put this into reference real quick. I got a couple more comments. I don't know where they're at in here because there's literally like 1,400 comments. One comment I got was, is it's easy as pointing it out there, seeing a fish, throwing a jerkbait, catching the bass. That is an absolute, like, not even possible statement. Like, that is the most ridiculous statement. And anybody that has used forward-facing sonar in the last year could attest to exactly what I'm saying. Is there certain instances where I can cast a jerkbait to a fish and catch one? Sure. Guys, it is not that easy to catch fish on forward-facing sonar. Let's just look at one of the last Bassmaster tournaments, Lake Champlain, where a lot of guys were using forward-facing sonar and catching fish, and there was a bunch of 20-pound bags and a lot of big fish caught. Did you look at the bottom 50, though? Do you think they weren't using it, or do you think they were using it? Because a lot of those guys were still using it. So there's a lot of guys that are selling out to it and still not catching bass, which means it is not as easy as it sounds. You have to be in the right areas. You still have to be in the right areas. Now, I don't care what lake you go to. It's not like you can just go to this creek and then the next day you're going to go to that creek, 50 miles away. It is not that simple. Baits, these fish are getting conditioned to more and more baits, so it's harder to catch fish on certain lures. I'm not saying this on any other side other than saying it's not as easy as some people think it is. It's not as simple as just seeing a fish on it and catching said fish. It's not that simple. Promise. Crappie are even getting more difficult to catch, especially if you're in a place that they've been shined on quite a bit. And actually, if anything, I've seen a trend with fish as of late. As soon as you hit them with that sonar, they swim away. They know it. They feel it. So I'm starting to see that happen as well. But I just really wanted to say that it's not as easy as some people, or as easy as some of these elite pros or Bass Pro Tour pros make it look. Another big thing, let's see, here's I appreciate your perspective, man. I'd love to see forward-facing sonar taken out of competitive fishing. It takes away from the tradition of the sport and what it means to be a good angler. I actually can respect that, because when I grew up watching fishing, which was a long time ago, there was a lot more flipping and pitching and frogging and, throwing lipless crankbaits and doing all these things. And there was a lot more instinct put into it and stuff like that. And it was harder to catch fish. And when you had a 30 or 40 or 50 fish day, you were like, oh my gosh, I just throttled them today. So I can respect that. And not to really argue with the point, I don't think forward-facing sonar should be taken out. I've made it pretty clear in the last one what I felt like should be the case. But with that said, I still understand the instinct side of things, and I think there's a real problem with some of the younger anglers, and I'm going to address that here in just a few minutes. There's one particular one that I really want to find real quick, because just in the last few minutes, I've had a lot of comments. Let's see, that's top comments. There we go. Newest first. That's where I was messing up. I knew I was messing up somewhere. Let's see. Here we go. I had some comments I really wanted to address. Oh, here we go. Side imaging is nothing compared to forward-facing sonar, with a few laughing faces. I use my graph for mapping and depth 95% of the time and don't even use the imaging. The funny thing is, I'm still very competitive with the guys in the local clubs using side and down religiously. The couple using forward-facing sonar, I'm not even standing a chance anymore. It's too powerful, too quickly, and too big of a jump from side and down. Okay, this is something that I responded to with a bunch of guys, but I really wanted to voice my opinion here. I got smashed in the comment section talking about my comparing forward-facing sonar to 360, side imaging, etc. And I want to elaborate on that just a little bit. The way I look at sonar, I look at 2D and down scan as equivalent, because they're looking straight down. They're not looking anywhere else. They're looking straight under my trolling motor or straight under my boat. Comparatively, I use forward-facing sonar, 360, and side imaging identical. And identical in reference to they look outside the boat. So they're not looking down like traditional sonar. They're looking around, okay? So they're looking 360, they're looking to the side, they're looking forwards and everywhere I point my trolling motor. Okay. So just so y'all understand my point of view there. I want to backtrack 10 years or 15 years ago when side imaging came out, and everybody, all they had was 2D sonar and mapping. When side imaging came out, for all the young anglers that weren't there to experience it, it was, I hate this term, it was a game changer for a ton of reasons. To the point where if you weren't side imaging in your tournaments and finding either schools of fish or structure or whatever it may be, you were left behind. And I'm saying in a big, massive way. You go to a lake like Kentucky Lake, Pickwick, Chickamauga, Toledo, Rayburn, Gunnersville, any of those lakes, and there's so many more, but any of those lakes, if you weren't using side imaging, you were getting throttled all the time. I remember when Rayburn, more specifically Rayburn, when side imaging, a few guys got super good at it and understood what they were looking at and learned it. Dude, we'd go out there in January, February, and we were trapping and swim jigging and chatterbaiting, and we're doing all the traditional fishing. And you'd go catch 20, 21, 22 pounds. And you're like, heck yeah, guys, look at this. I caught them. And then some dude that figured out side imaging had 33 and 35 pounds. This is all pre-forward-facing sonar now. But we're catching these massive backs. Todd Castledine was one of those guys that figured that out. Danny Isles was one of those guys that figured that out. Some of these dudes got so good and found so many things using side imaging that it was baffling. To the point where you fast forward 3 years, you'd get into a tournament where you knew it was going to be an offshore type bite. Guys were side imaging for 3, 4, 5 days straight. Not forward facing sonar. Side imaging for 3 and 4 and 5 days straight. And I'm not saying like an hour, find some fish and fish. I'm saying 10, 12-hour days, and all they did was idle. They still do it to this day. That technology is humongous. I don't care what anybody says. Is it comparative? Like, no, it doesn't show you live, but it shows you what's beside you in a quicker way. I mean, I can idle fast and I can see everything beside me. Okay. 360. When 360 first came out, and even the last 3 or 4 years, there's some guys that were sneaky good at it. I will not call the guys out, but there's a few pro anglers that figured out 360. I will call one out, Brandon Palaniuk. His first couple wins on like Champlain and some of these places, dude, there's guys that talk about using technology that don't actually use it. Let's be honest. There's guys that say, well, I used so-and-so, and no, you were just fishing, you figured out a pattern, and you crushed on them. Palaniuk uses 360 a lot, and he got really, really good at it because it shows you targets all around your boat, and he was able to capitalize on that and win when nobody else was winning and catching these big sacks. I mean, he was crushing people using that thing. Fast forward to forward-facing sonar. I've had it for maybe as long as some, or a lot of people. I mean, I think I've had it like 5 or 6 years. From the beginning of Panoptics to Live Scope to now Active Target and Active Target 2. And it is great. It's a great technology. It shows you a lot of really cool things, and you're able to see fish. Great. Everybody knows what it does, all right? But that is my comparison to the two. Or to the three, actually, because to me, there's three. There's side, 360, forward-facing sonar. We have been staring at our screens for over a decade, easily over a decade. Guys are getting bored by it now, and I think I know why. I really do. And I've tried to understand where everybody's coming from, because I've read almost every single comment that I've gotten. And I actually, my wife got mad at me. We were on vacation at the beach this weekend, and just to take Kane to the beach, and I'm over there scrolling through comments, responding to comments, and she's like, please put your phone down, and I did, and that's why I stopped responding to comments. But the deal is to me, I think the biggest downfall right now is our young anglers, or the more, and I'm not going to say just young, because I hate generalizing a group of kids or a group of fishermen because of a couple. So there's a lot of new fishermen, I'm going to say new pros out there that are so totally encapsulated by the game. And I'm not saying the game of forward-facing sonar, because I saw plenty of comments saying it's a game, or it's spotlighting deer, it's whatever, and I'm not making fun of your comments. I'm just saying I read a lot of the same comments. I'm saying that young anglers or new anglers are so locked into the tournament. So they're so focused on the tournament that they can't see what's going on around them. So they're not talking to the camera. They're not engaging with you guys. They're not engaging with the host. They are just focused on catching bass. When they catch one, they talk for a second. Sometimes they don't even do that. They throw the fish in the live well and they move on. And they're right back on their game. Okay. The problem is, when MLF left Bassmaster, it took 75% of anglers away. So over the course of the last 4 years, there's been a lot more new faces show up. Whether it be some invites in the beginning from FLW to the guys that are qualifying. Well, a lot of the guys that qualify are rookies or young. And so they don't know any better. They are not being taught how to talk to the camera. They haven't, in some cases, haven't ever even talked to a camera before. Like, these are guys that have just showed up, started bass fishing, got really good, and made the Elite Series. They don't know how to speak to you guys. They don't know how to talk about sponsor products. They don't know how to relate to anyone in some situations. And to me, that is a fault of Bassmaster, number one. Because I'll call a spade in this situation. Bassmaster needs to fix that. And number two, the anglers have to stop being so focused. And I know that's kind of like an oxymoron, because you want them to be focused on their sport, but yet not focused at the same time. However, let's say, for instance, forward-facing sonar, one of the big complaints here is they want it banned because it's like watching paint dry. It's boring to watch. It's spotlighting deer. It's all these things, okay? And they're boycotting it. They're not going to watch it if that's going to be the case anymore. the reality is the anglers are more to blame than anybody, because the angler is sitting there just staring at their screen nonstop, not talking. I could sit and watch Gerald Swindle all day long using forward-facing sonar, because undoubtedly that dude is going to say something absolutely hilarious, and I'm going to laugh my butt off the whole day. And it'd be like fishing with your best friend and your buddy that's funnier than everybody. I could sit there and watch him use forward-facing sonar and never get bored. Same goes for Seth Feider. I could sit there and watch Seth Feider do it and still laugh, because you just never know what's going to come out of that dude's mouth. And I think that's part of the problem. So the fans, one thing the fans said, and I could read a comment on that, is, let's see, I just want to make sure I get, here's one. A problem you have overlooked, and understandably so, is being your pro status, is the co-angler participation is down, but you don't have to worry about that in the elites or the Bass Pro Tour. But let's see, I did not hear about the fans. The interest the general public has is where the money comes from, and the general public does not like it. They don't want to watch it. I am a tournament fisherman, and I have no interest in watching a pro looking down at his screen for hours, and that is not good for the sport. This, of course, is my opinion, but the majority of fans don't like it, and that is a fact. Your video talked about the money, but where does the money come from? I got that comment in overwhelming fashion. I got a ton of those that I didn't understand what the fan was coming from. Well, the reality is, honestly, my first video was addressing more pro anglers and some whining that I was hearing and the grumblings that I was hearing. And as a tournament angler, we don't really, I'm not saying we don't have say in tournament organizations like Bassmaster and MLF, because MLF is run by anglers. But in the scheme of things of Bassmaster, we're more concerned with trying to increase our payouts and try to do things like that, because it does benefit us. One of my favorite comments was, I talked about Brian Latimer's comment about everybody pushing their own agendas and things like that, and I actually had somebody that was really negative towards me, saying that I was just pushing my agenda. And you're absolutely right. I am pushing my agenda. You know what my agenda is? It's to bring the fishing industry together. And if I'm wrong for trying to bring people together, then don't ever watch my channel. Because I'm not going to be negative Nancy, and I'm not just going to blast negativity every single place to try to get views. I am trying to make this better for everybody, because the current state of fishing, I hate it. I hate where we are right now as a fishing community. I hate that I have to wake up every day and deal with negativity on both sides. I hate the cancel culture that we're currently in, and the fact that we can't, as grown adults in a lot of situations, I don't get me wrong, there's a few kids here, but as grown adults, we can't figure out a common ground and come together. I think it's baffling. That is the most baffling part. But to get back to my point, I did not hear about the fans. Okay, fan perspective. The fans pushed super hard to get Bassmaster to show more coverage. They wanted more, right? We all want more. We're the century of more right now. We want more all the time. Okay. Well, when you have more, let's say, for instance, the old school Bassmaster TV show, 1 hour long, probably one of my favorite shows of all time. Easily my favorite show. Showed the highlights of the day. It was high octane, high energy, fish catches, wins. You're seeing great hook sets. You weren't hearing a bunch of guys talk. You were just seeing a bunch of fishing, right? I watched it for years. I loved watching Bassmaster. But as everything changes, technology changed, we were able to stream things. And people are like, man, could you imagine a day where we get to watch an all-day series of bass fishing? Can you believe it? And here we are. Okay, we're watching 6 hours of bass fishing, 5, 6 hours. Well, guess what, guys? 5 and 6 hours of bass fishing is boring in a lot of situations. Let's be honest. There's a lot of day that is boring. That's just a fact. So let's say, for instance, all you fans and I'm not saying you fans as a derogatory statement, just for anybody that wants to comment that. But all the fans out there, they say, you know what, if Bass doesn't ban it, we are not watching that anymore. Well, guess what? Coverage disappears. Tournaments decrease. Fishermen decrease. And the industry suffers. So is that really the best thought process on this? Is that really the best way to go about this? Or should we say, you know what? Maybe anglers should go through a teaching class or a learning class on how to speak to the public, and Bass actually promote that aspect of things where they say, you know what? We're going to put anglers through a week-long seminar, a week. And I'm not saying a day. I'm not saying an hour. A week-long. They have to travel here before they fish the Elite Series. I don't care who you are or how good you think you are. Teaching course on how to speak to the public, how to interact with the camera, and how to not stare down at your unit 24/7. Because I'm going to be honest with you guys. 10 years ago, guys were still staring at their units. Ledge fishing, grass fishing. They're trying to line up. They're trying to do all these things, and their eyes are always down. The difference was, when you watch Bassmaster, then you're watching an hour-long TV show instead of a 6-hour-long TV show. They're only, let's say, for instance, the camera was aimed at me for 6 hours. Undoubtedly, there's going to be at least 5 hours or 3 hours of that time frame that I'm not going to be able to talk because I'm going to lose my voice because I've talked so much. Okay? So there definitely some great benefit and great problems with all of this. So we have to figure out a way to make it better. So let's say, for instance, Bassmaster requires all elite anglers to come in for 1 full week and learn how to talk. There's one thing. Second thing is, you put limits on forward-facing sonar. I actually read a really cool comment where it said maybe they should only limit forward-facing sonar to 5 events of the year, and then the rest of the events you're not allowed to use it. That sounds cool. I'm not against that. I'm not even against, there were some comments saying that instead of having 4 graphs, you're limited to the amount of inches of your screen. So 48 inches total is what you get, and that's just what you get. So you can use one big one on the front, 2 on the back, or whatever the combination you'd want. I'm not against that either. I think it's really important that we figure out a way to not cancel everything, because it is a slippery slope. Let's say, for instance, we cancel forward-facing sonar, and we say, you know what, no more forward-facing sonar. It's done. Where does that stop? The next year, when side imaging becomes such a big deal, or 360 becomes a really, really big deal, and then it's like, oh, well, now we're going to cancel 360. Well, then 2 years later, now we're going to cancel all bait casting reels because anybody that uses those has an unfair advantage because they can cast further than spinning rods, or vice versa. I know these are some extremes, but as you can see, there is a limit to where we start cutting things. We ban things. I just think we got to really take into consideration what we're asking for here. I think we can all come together, be productive, quit being so dang negative, and figure out a way to make things better for everybody. Everybody, fishermen included. My agenda is to make this sport better for the next generation. Banning things and showing them that that's the way to handle things is not the way to do it. I will never believe that. Trying to cancel people out, cancel organizations out, trying to put people out of business is not the way to do it. We need to work together to come to a common ground. I think that is extremely important. I will always believe that is the best way to go here. So my stance is still the same. I think you should limit to 1 forward-facing sonar unit, 4 units or a combination of inches on screens, and I really think Bassmaster should cut down their live coverage from 6 hours to 4 hours, highlight more of the fishing aspect, less on the forward-facing sonar aspect of things. I think that Bassmaster should require for all anglers a 1-week seminar, full week, full days, 5 days, where the angler has to show up to learn to be better anglers. I think that's really important. I think it's better for the fan. It engages with the fan better. And quite honestly, maybe you have a better idea. Maybe y'all have all the answers to all my questions. But guys, if you're watching my YouTube channel, know this. I want this to be a positive place for people. I want this to be a positive place for companies, organizations. I think we can all come together and have a better understanding of what we do moving forward if we can come to a common ground. Let me leave you with this. Let's say, for instance, all these anglers or all these people in my comment section, they want to ban it. Well, they know it's just banning high-level tournaments, right? That's what they're banning. Same guys, and I've read a ton of comments, they have forward-facing sonar. They see how good it is, but pros shouldn't be allowed to use it. Would they be as vocal if I said, hey, let's just ban it nationwide, nobody's allowed to use it? Truly. I want to leave you with that, because would they be as vocal if it was taken away from them? Because the reality is, when I go to a tournament lake that I've never been to before, I want to use all the tools that I have at my disposal to help me catch fish. Because undoubtedly, there's going to be guys that got information. I fish the opens. You can get information, okay? I'm not calling out the elite guys. I'm not calling out Bass Pro Tour guys for getting info. I will never do that. But undoubtedly, the people I fish against have gotten the information, the best information. In some situations, I ain't gotten any information because I don't know anybody there. Or, I've never been there and I just showed up and went fishing. I want to use all the tools at my disposal to catch the fish that I can in a very short amount of time. So if that means great high-level mapping like C-Map from Lowrance, using forward-facing sonar, my side scan, I want to be able to use all the tools I can to catch bass. I need those tools to catch bass, okay? Could I just go to the bank and turn everything off? Sure, and I have done it. I've done it five of the 6 times this year, I want to say. I've caught everything swim jigging, frogging, flipping, throwing a weightless stick worm. I mean, that's how I've caught my bass this year. It's just the reality of it. I'm in 21st place in the Opens, and I would dare to say a lot of guys ahead of me are using forward-facing sonar, are really, really good at it. I'm not complaining about them, because guess what? The reason I'm in the spot that I am is because of Toledo Bend, which I shouldn't have sucked in so bad, but I sucked there. I finished 116th place. That was my fault. I had a top 40 easily in that tournament. And if that was the case, I'd have had like 2 50s, a 40, a couple 30s, and a 15th, and I'd be in the top 10 in points. That's my fault. That's not forward-facing sonar's fault. I'm not going to blame a technology because I sucked that day. I just got to figure out how to catch them in the next 3 events. Guys, whether you like my opinions on all this or not, that's fine. But reality is, we've got to figure out a way to make this better for everybody. I think that I've laid out a couple options for Bassmaster to make it better, and even maybe the Bass Pro Tour. I don't know how they operate over there. I haven't fished an MLF or FLW tournament since 2019, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. So, I talked to a bunch of guys over there. I got a bunch of buddies over there. But I really believe that we have to figure this out for the longevity of the sport. I do know the fans are the reason that our sport exists, and I want the fans to be engaged. I want them to be happy, but at the same time, I want to be a level playing field for everybody. And if everybody has the technology, it's really hard for me to say that it's not a level playing field just because a few guys don't know how to use it or don't want to go spend the time to learn how to use it. So, and when we saw the same exact thing for side imaging during that day, is guys were like, you know what, I'm just going to fish the bank. And in a lot of cases, those guys got throttled because the guys out there side imaging. So, take everything I said with a grain of salt. Leave your comments below. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so. And I appreciate y'all watching the video. I hope I answered some questions and elaborated a little bit more on my stance on things. And hopefully, I'll see you on the next one.